Hello guys, this is Nat Blue with a new video. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I recently bought some PDFs from a website called armorclass.co. So ARMORCLASS.co. And I wanted to go over them really quick. So far I think they're really cool. I haven't been able to use them in a game recently. I haven't played in like 4 weeks. And I haven't plugged my printer back in since getting a new setup for my monitor. So I wanted to just go over them, talk about it a little bit. If anybody from Armor Class sees this video, I do love your guys' products. So uh, this is not sponsored. I am not a big enough YouTuber to get sponsors, but I do really like this stuff. So we'll go to hop into it with the player cheat sheet. I think this is the most important PDF I downloaded. So the player's cheat sheet tells a new player how to play the game, or I mean a veteran player, but most veteran players might not need this. So it starts with a how to play section. I don't know if this was a necessity. It's a cool little feature, but I mean, it might not have been necessary. So then it talks about rolling dice. I think this is a very important section. I have a player in my games that consistently forgets the difference between advantage and disadvantage. I was trying to highlight, but it's not going to let me. So I think this would be very good for that type of player that just needs those reminders every so often. It explains what inspiration does. A lot of people forget about inspiration, so this would be a good thing for your player to highlight. That way, if they do have inspiration, this could remind them. It explains what reactions are, and then it gives you up here things you can do on your turn. So move up to your speed, take an action, take a bonus action, and interact with something. I like this because sometimes players don't think they can do all of that. So I've had a new player ask me in the past if they can move and attack, and I had to explain this action economy thing to them. So I think that's a nice little thing to put on this paper. And then the different actions you can take. So the attack action, the casting a spell, dash, disengage, dodge, help, hide, and ready. I think this is also great because a lot of these get forgotten as options. So disengage, sometimes people forget about. I have forgot about it. It led to one of my PCs dying a few months ago. The dodge action, most people just don't use, so it's nice to know that that's an option. Help is underutilized in most of my tables. Readying an action is underutilized in most of my tables, so I think this is great. And then we have different combat terms. So initiative, making an attack, how you would do that. Critical hits, ranged weapons, knocking a creature out, opportunity attacks. And then some special movements. So dropping prone at no cost, standing up for half your movement, jumping, and then different difficult terrain. And then things like hit points, instant death, which I don't use at my tables, but I know a lot of people use that mechanic. Falling unconscious, which I really like that it explains what a nat 1 and a nat 20 do. And then rest and recovery. So the difference between a short rest and a long rest. So I think out of all of the PDFs I'm going to show you today, this is the most important. If you were to buy anything from armorclass.co, I would recommend something like this. Or if you don't want to buy something, at least making a cheat sheet for your new players is always a nice thing to do. And something I should have done when we started this most recent campaign. So we're going to drop out of that. And we are going to go to the DM cheat sheet. So I have a DM cheat sheet on my DM screen, like most DMs do. I think a lot of DM screens come with cheat sheets. I think this is a pretty solid one. I like the difficulty class, so the DC. This is something I forget about sometimes. So whether or not, how high to make my DC. So if I want something to be difficult, sometimes I don't put it as a DC 20 because I forget that there is a mechanic for that. So this is really useful to people like me. The character skills, I wish it would have been a little bit more specific. My current DM cheat sheet gives an example of all of these skills. So I wish that would be a little bit more specific, but it's still useful to know where it falls under. Rounding down, just reminding you that fractions always round down. Explaining how to do contest is pretty useful, so you make contested rolls against each other. The different damage types are pretty good to put onto a cheat sheet. Explaining the difference between vulnerability, resistance, and immunity is great. damage severity by level, I don't know what that means. I don't understand what that means. Improvising damage is really useful to me. I always have issues figuring out how much damage something should do. I normally just wing it. So this is a nice little thing to have. Putting the potions of healing on here is very useful. That way you don't forget how much HP you regain. The way we do it at my tables is the little containers you get dice in. I fill those with D4s, and then I write on the side if it's a greater healing, superior healing. And the way that it works is if you use a healing potion at my table, I hand you this dice container, and you roll the dice that are in there. Exploration. So I like that they put exhaustion on here. A lot of people forget how the exhaustion mechanics work. I often forget how the exhaustion mechanic works. I don't understand the trap danger. So the setback, dangerous, and deadly. I don't understand what that means. I do wish that they had done like a damage amount instead. So like how much damage a bear trap would do, which I'm sure is available information, but it would be nice to have it on a cheat sheet. Explaining the different movements. So just like they did on the player sheet, there's a lot of stuff on here that overlaps. Travel pace, I think this is great. So this is how fast you can move per minute, which is nice. So like if you're moving really fast, you can move 400 feet a minute, which is pretty fast because most players have a normal walking speed of 30 feet every 6 seconds. So 400 feet in a minute makes sense. Long jump. So this explains how to jump. High jump, same thing. Falling damage, I think, is a great thing to have on any DM cheat sheet because I often forget how much bludgeoning damage you take. And I normally forget the max, which is 20d6. So I think that's great. Explaining the different vision and light terms, so like dim light, darkness, dark vision, and then how bright different light sources are. So bright light, dim light, and then the different light sources. So the difference between a candle being 5 feet and a torch being 20 feet. So that's great. I don't know why they put that reminder at the bottom about difficult terrain, because it's pretty close. It's just diagonally across from it. I do like this note at the bottom: if traveling more than 8 hours in a day, make a con saving throughout the end of every hour. DC 10 plus 1 for each extra hour. A failure gains 1 level of exhaustion. I've never heard that before. That's interesting because it would be a lot, especially if you're wearing armor, carrying weapons, carrying a backpack, stuff like that. Combat, so it gives the different combat action items or action options. How to start combat, what initiative is, what critical hits are, reactions. It says roll all damage dice twice, then add the modifiers on top. I double my modifiers unless it's something like the flame tongue. I might not double the modifier for, or I might not double the fire damage. Reactions, opportunity attacks, how cover works, which I think is great because I forget how cover works a lot. So half cover, 3/4, full cover. That's a nice thing to put on there. So death and 0 HP, explaining what instant death is, which like I said, I don't use. Explaining death saving throws. So that's very useful for like a new DM. Spell casting, I like this. So the spell areas, the difference between like a cube, sphere, cone, cylinder, and just a straight line or a beam. Losing concentration, so that's great. I think if I was a DM, I would highlight this too. So just the 2 words losing concentration. If I were to put this on my DM screen, because I think concentration is something that's easy to forget about. I think a lot of times when somebody is using a concentration spell, they just kind of get away with not losing concentration. So I think it would be nice to highlight something like that. Bonus action spells. This is something I had an argument with my group about recently because some people don't like this rule. If casting a bonus action spell, you can't cast another spell this turn unless it's a cantrip. I think that's up to the table discretion. Spell save DC, so that's great to explain. Different conditions. This is a very useful page on any DM cheat sheet. We're not going to go through these, but it does explain all of the different conditions you can have. This is especially useful if you have a monster that the description of an attack says what condition it imposes, but it doesn't explain the condition. So for example, if one of the stat blocks says that the monster like wars, and everybody within a 20-foot radius has to make a wisdom save or be frightened. This explains what frightened means. So it's a lot faster than having to pull out your phone, Googling it, to just have this kind of paper within line of sight. Overall, love the DM cheat sheets. And then I wanted to highlight some of the character sheets I bought. So we're going to go through 3 of them. This is the Bard. I wanted to start with this one because the Bard is my favorite class by a decent amount. So you have the section in the top left for your name, your race, your archetype, your level, stuff like that. You have a hit point section, which I think is great. It has a max and a current. I think that's a little bit cleaner than how the hit point section looks on a standard DM screen. It has your passives, which normally the only passives you look at on a DM screen are Dark Vision and Perception. I do like that they have Insight and Investigation on here because it's something that I sometimes forget have passive numbers for. It has a Death Save section, an AC section, which I like that it's like built into the Bard's cape because it makes it so it's not too hard to see. I think my one gripe with this is this inventory section right here is hard to see. Or not hard to see. It's not big enough. It's a very small inventory section. You're not going to have that small of an inventory. And then there's initiative, speed, proficiency. I think those are out of the way enough that it's still easy to see them, which is great. Instrument, I don't think is necessary. I did not realize this was a fillable PDF, but I don't know if instrument's necessary. It's not something that's going to come up too often. Song of Rest, that's great. Bardic Inspiration is nice because you have a total and a used section. That's nice. I do like that they have a currency separate from the inventory because it means that that small square that has inventory in it is going to be a little bit more useful than without a currency section because there definitely would not be room at all. I really like this section. So like the strength, all of the different skills, having the modifier beside them and then the saving throw beside them, the different sub skills. I do wish that these were separated by like larger skills. So putting all of the charisma stuff together, putting all the strength stuff together. Something I love about this is the weapon section. So there's a name for your weapon, a hit bonus, damage type, the range of the weapon, which for some reason is not on every player sheet, and then damage dice. So I think this is great. It adds a little bit more flexibility than some weapon sections do. The ammo is nice. It is a little small, but most people don't have multiple ammo types. I think the only exception would be like rogues, which this is not a rogue. A bard probably doesn't have too many ammo types, but rogues might like have arrows, daggers. I've heard some people using like caltrops, stuff like that. Character development, I think this is a nice page. The artwork's also great. Armor Class did an amazing job with the artwork. So you have your name of your character, the ideals, flaws, features, traits, backstory. Those are pretty standard. Personality is nice to have on here. I normally write that somewhere on my character sheet so that I just remember how the character acts in case there's big gaps between sessions. Enemies and allies, I think, is nice because it helps you remember names. I have a different paper in my D&D binder specifically to write down NPC names when I'm a player because I don't want to forget everybody's names. And then you have treasures, which I would assume are things that your character holds dear. And then the languages that you know, which having this large section for languages is good for some players because my players want to learn every language they can get their hands on. This is one of my favorite pages on this. So the spell casting. I think that it just gives you a lot of room for spell casting, which I think is great. I don't know, for some reason it looks like that's like X'd out, but I don't know why. But yeah, the spell casting section's great. It gives you all 6 levels of spell casting. It gives you a cantrip section. I think that's amazing. And once again, the artwork looks great. And then a note section. So this is a really nice looking note section. It has like the bard hand, some grapes, some ink, dice. I think it just gives a really good bard vibe to it. And then we have the paladin. So these all have names. This is the Crusader. The other one was like Midnight Melody. So I think those are pretty cool. But this, once again, the name, the Paladin archetype. We're not going to spend as much time on here. We'll just talk about some differences. So they have a section for the Sacred Oath. They have more sections for ammo. So that's interesting. I do like this. So, like I said, some characters might have more ammo types. So Paladin would have arrows, javelins, maybe something like a hand axe or a dagger. So that's nice. I do like this seems a little bit more open with the mods and saving throws. So that's nice too. Character development, amazing artwork again. Yeah, they just did a great job. So not really differences here, just a different art style. Same with the spellcasting, different art style, same concept. I didn't notice. I don't think the bard had all of the spell levels. So they have 6 on here. The bards get more. The bards get 9th level spells, don't they? That's odd. Okay. So, yeah, that's odd. But Paladin has 8 levels, which I don't know if Paladins even get 9th level spells. They have a section for their cantrips. I don't like this page as much as I like the Bard one because I'm a little bit of a perfectionist and it doesn't line up on the left-hand side. Or it doesn't line up very well at all for the spell categories. And then another beautiful notes page with a magic symbol. So Paladin also great. My only gripe is the spells page. And my only gripe with the Bard, or my big gripe with the Bard, is the fact that the spell page doesn't have 9 levels of spells. And then the last one I wanted to go through is the Wizard. So similar thing for the Wizard. Inventory is still a little bit small, but Arcane Tradition is a good, cool thing. Arcane Recovery is pretty cool. I think that's a little bit of a higher level thing, but it's still nice to have on here. Ooh, I liked the artwork for the different skills. So like the circle around it and everything, that looks pretty cool. Different weapons, 2 ammo slots again. Character development, I love this wizard drawing right there. The different features, traits, spell casting. Let's see how many spell things they have. So they have 8, which you're not going to get more than like 1 level 9 spell, but it would still be nice to have a small section for it. You might get a couple level 9 spells. It's not going to be significant. And then another note section. This is probably the most simple out of them. So there are character sheets for every class, including the Artificer. So if you guys are interested in the character sheets, you can get them at armorclass.co. I love them. I think they're pretty cool. And speaking of armorclass.co, the last thing I wanted to do is just go to the website. So 10,000 happy customers. That's cool. D&D cheat sheet for beginners. That would be the player sheet, I believe. You have an inventory sheet, which I considered buying because I think that's pretty solid. So there's like a gold, silver, copper, platinum. So there's a currency section. And the thing I like about it is the artwork has different colors for the coins. And then I like that it's a fillable PDF. So the reason I like that it's a fillable PDF is you can use this for an online game and you wouldn't have to print the paper. So you could pull up the PDF on a separate monitor or a different tab and then use this while you're playing on like Roll20 or D&D Beyond. Which D&D Beyond and Roll20, I think both have inventory options, but some people like to use their own thing. I like to use my own thing. And then they have editable spell cards. So I think this is pretty cool. You could put different spells in there. I think that might be really important to some people with the new edition of D&D. I thought I could scroll over. Can I not? Well, they have Eldritch spell cards too. So DM Essentials, that includes the character sheets, which they have a typo here that they've got to fix. It doesn't include the T. I do really like the character sheets. So there's the Barbarian. The Artificer just looks really cool. So I highly recommend the character sheets for anybody that likes to add a little bit of flavor to the character sheet. I know I like using different looking character sheets. I'm not a huge fan of um using like the official character sheet. I like this more. It's like a blueprint sheet. Oh, that's cool. And they have a coin section on here. Ooh, the spell level is cool too. Okay, yeah, that's cooler. I don't think I bought any of the colored ones. This is the first time I've seen them. I did not come to this website before making the video, which I probably should have, but um no, these are so cool. The dog pact is really cool. That's the warlock. The monk one is cool. The artwork is just so good through this website. Most popular character sheet. Ooh, there's a colorful bard one. I'm not going to get the colorful ones. They look beautiful. I do like the artwork a little bit more for these, but the color and everything. Oh, the other ones, not for these. The colors in the background are just so cool. I'm not going to get it, even though it might be fillable. Yeah, so on your digital device. I'm not going to get it for a specific reason. I don't like using too much color on my printer, so I prefer like black and white papers. Ink is expensive, guys, so just try to save a little bit of money. But yeah, they have different spell cards. Pretty much what I'm trying to say is check out armorclass.co. I think it's a cool website. I think a lot of D&D fans would really like it, but I don't think it's something that gets discussed very often. I don't see a lot of people talking about this particular resource. I know a lot of people get character sheets off of Etsy and stuff. I think I might have gotten some character sheets off of Etsy at some point. And people buy DM cheat sheets constantly. So I think this is another great option. Even though some of the stuff is a little pricey, I know some of the PDFs are like $7. The DM cheat sheet is $10. The player cheat sheet is normally $10. It's on sale for $7 today. I don't know if it's going to be on sale for $7 when this comes out. Inventory sheet is $5. The spell cards get up to $27. So it's a little bit more expensive, but I think with how much information is on there, how great the artwork is, I think it's worth the price. There's also some options on here that I didn't go over. So there's character creation and level up guides. So there's a PDF you can buy that walks people through how to create their characters. There's a combat encounter tracker. So it tracks initiative, HP of your monsters, rounds. You can prepare your loot. You can write down XP if you do XP leveling. So that's a cool thing too. There's some bounty posters you can get. So you can print off bounty posters if you like to give your characters a physical piece of paper during sessions for that kind of stuff. There's an NPC tracker sheet so that it's like you write the stats for your NPC. So the HP, the different ability modifiers. So if you're not using like official stat blocks, or if you don't have things like typed on a laptop, then this would be a cool thing to use for that. There's a certificate of demise, which I think is really funny, which if one of your characters dies, you can give them a certificate saying, hey, thanks for playing the campaign, pretty much. And then a cool option, and you know what? I'll swap back screens for a moment. They have a deck of many things. And anybody who's watched a decent amount of my D&D content, I've talked about the deck of many things like 3 or 4 times now. I love the deck of many things. So I always like cool artwork with this, and these cards look pretty sick. My only issue with it is I like the feeling of a real deck. I don't want a PDF file. I would want to buy a deck of cards. So it's not as useful for me, but for other people that, I mean, some of you might have card printers because that's a thing. You can buy card printers. So for people that have that, or people that want it as a digital thing, because it is a PDF file, you can keep it on your computer. And if you're using a laptop during a session, you can just pull that out. For people like that, you can definitely buy that. I think it would be great. It's a really cool looking, PDF file too. Really cool looking really cool looking deck. I said death on accident because I wanted to show you guys this certificate too. So let it be known on this day, blank was lost to this world, cause of death and witnesses. I love this. this is something ridiculous that I would give a player if they died in my campaign. So I do love this. There's two different options. There's a more like regal one, and then there's this black and red one. I would probably use the black and red one just to add levity to it. I think my campaign's a little bit darker. But if you have like a paladin or a cleric, I think the other one thematically is also really cool. I like the farewell. So, okay, this has gone longer than I expected it to, so we're going to cut it off here. Like I said, if anybody is interested in anything from this website, just go to armoredclass.co. I think that they make some great stuff, so go and support them. The artwork's amazing. The documents are very resourceful. They're full of useful information. And other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope anybody from Armored Class that might be watching this keeps making great stuff. So otherwise, if you liked this video, you can leave a like. If you want to see more videos like this, you can subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when videos are released. And other than that, until next time, peace.